The crisp autumn air always called to me, pulling me away from the city and into the embrace of the woods. That particular Saturday was no different. Sunlight dappled through the canopy, painting the forest floor in shifting patterns of gold and shadow. I was miles from any marked trail, just exploring, letting my feet carry me where they would. That's when I saw it. A low, crumbling stone circle nearly swallowed by moss and ivy. A well. Old, forgotten, and strangely magnetic. Curiosity is a powerful and sometimes foolish thing. I leaned over the edge, peering into the darkness. It was deep, so deep the sunlight didn't dare to venture past the first few feet of stonework. A damp, earthy smell rose from it, the scent of secrets and long-forgotten things. I nudged a loose stone with the toe of my boot, wanting to hear it splash, to gauge the depth. But the moss was slicker than it looked. My foot slipped. For a heart-stopping second I was suspended in air, my fingers scrabbling against the rough, wet stone. Then I was falling. The fall felt like an eternity and no time at all. My shoulder slammed against the side, a searing pain shooting through me. Then, a bone-jarring impact as I hit the bottom. Not water, but a thick, yielding layer of mud and rotted leaves. The impact knocked the wind out of me, and for a long moment I just lay there, gasping, my heart hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird. The world was a dizzying pinprick of light far, far above me. Panic began to set in, a cold, creeping dread that was far worse than the physical pain. I screamed until my throat was raw, my voice swallowed by the suffocating stone throat of the well. No one would hear me. No one even knew where I was. I was utterly, completely alone. I tried to stand, my ankles screaming in protest. It was twisted, maybe broken. I slumped back against the slimy wall, my hope draining away into the cold mud. Hours bled into one another. The circle of light above me shifted from bright blue to a soft, bruised purple and then faded to black. The darkness down here was absolute, a physical presence that pressed in on all sides. It wasn't just the absence of light. It was alive. Every rustle of leaves, every drip of water became amplified, monstrous. My imagination, fueled by fear and isolation, began to run wild. Was that just the wind whispering over the top of the well? Or was it a voice? I started talking to myself just to break the oppressive silence, recounting my day, listing state capitals, anything to keep the encroaching madness at bay. My thirst was a fire in my throat. I licked the damp condensation from the stones, the gritty, metallic taste doing little to quench it. My injured ankle throbbed relentlessly. Sleep was impossible. Every time I drifted off, nightmares would pull me back, images of pale, grasping hands reaching from the mud, of whispering voices just at the edge of hearing. Sometime during the second day, or was it the third, time had lost all meaning. I started to feel something else. A presence. It wasn't just in my head anymore. I felt it as a drop in temperature, a subtle pressure against my eardrums. I would hold my breath, listening, and in the profound silence I would hear it. A soft, wet, scraping sound. It came from the walls, from the very stones around me. Scrape, scrape, pause, scrape. My blood ran cold. It was the sound of fingernails dragging against stone. Slow, deliberate. I scrambled as far away from the sound as I could, pressing myself into the opposite wall, my heart trying to beat its way out of my chest. The scraping would stop for hours, lulling me into a fragile sense of security, only to start again from a different direction, closer this time. It was playing with me, toying with its trapped prey. I started to see things in the darkness, fleeting shapes in my peripheral vision, a flicker of movement that would vanish when I tried to focus on it. Were they hallucinations brought on by dehydration and fear? Or was the inhabitant of this well finally showing itself? I didn't want to know the answer. The scraping sound was now constant, a rhythmic, maddening background noise to my private hell. It was circling me, slowly, patiently. My voice was gone, reduced to a dry rasp. My thoughts were becoming disjointed, fractured. The line between reality and nightmare blurred until there was no line at all. I remember seeing eyes, not human eyes. They were pale, luminous orbs that floated in the darkness, blinking slowly, observing me with a cold, ancient intelligence. I didn't scream. I had no energy left for it. I just stared back, a silent, mutual understanding passing between us. I was the intruder. This was its home. The scraping stopped. A new sound began. A low, wet gurgle, like mud being forced through a narrow pipe. It was coming from right below me. I froze. Every muscle in my body locked tight. The mud at my feet began to shift, to bubble. Slowly, something began to emerge from the muck. It wasn't a hand. It was a long, pale, multi-jointed limb, like that of an insect, but slick and white, like bleached bone. It unfolded itself, segment by segment, reaching, questing in the dark, then another, and another. They rose from the mud around me, a forest of pale, skeletal limbs. They didn't touch me, not at first. They just moved around me, tapping gently on the walls, on the ground, as if mapping out their environment, mapping out me. The gurgling sound grew louder, and I could feel a low vibration through the ground. It was beneath me. The thing, whatever it was huge. The well wasn't its prison. It was its lair. And I had fallen right into the center of its web. One of the limbs brushed against my injured leg. It was cold, unnaturally so, and felt smooth, like polished ceramic. I didn't flinch. I couldn't. My body was no longer my own. My mind had retreated to a tiny, safe corner, watching the events unfold as if they were happening to someone else. The limb lingered on my leg, then slowly, deliberately, it began to wrap around my ankle. It was surprisingly gentle. There was no aggression, just a calm, terrifying sense of possession. That's when I heard the rope. A scraping sound from above, but different, louder, coarser. I looked up, and through my haze of terror I saw it. A thick rope dangling down from the bright circle of sky. Voices, faint but undeniably human. Someone had found me. A flicker of hope so powerful it was physically painful ignited in my chest. I tried to cry out, but only a dry, rattling hiss escaped my throat. The thing below me knew. The gentle pressure around my ankle tightened, not enough to hurt, but enough to hold. It was a clear message. You are not leaving. The limbs began to retract, sinking back into the mud with that horrible gurgling sound. But the one around my ankle remained, an anchor to the abyss. The voices above grew louder, clearer. Hello? Is anyone down there? I fought. With the last ounce of strength I possessed, I kicked and twisted, trying to wrench my leg free. The limb held fast. I looked up at the rope, a lifeline just feet from my grasp, and then down at the darkness that refused to let me go. It was a choice. Stay and be consumed, or fight and risk being torn apart. With a final desperate surge, I lunged for the rope, my hands closing around its rough fibers just as the thing below pulled. Searing pain shot up my leg, a sickening pop echoing in the confined space. I screamed, a real, ragged, full-throated scream this time. And I held on. I wrapped my arms and my good leg around that rope as the people above started to pull. My body dragged against the rough stone wall. The pressure on my ankle was immense, a grinding, crushing force. Then, with a final wet, tearing sound, I was free. They hauled me into the light. The sun was blinding, the air impossibly fresh. I remember the shocked faces of my rescuers, their gasps of horror. I didn't understand why until I looked down. My boot was gone, and so was my foot. From the ankle down, there was just a mangled, bloody stump. I didn't fall into an empty well. I fell into a nest, and it took a part of me as a souvenir. I never went back to the woods. Sometimes at night, when the house is quiet, I think I can still hear it. A faint, wet scraping sound, and I know it's waiting. Patiently. Thank you so much for watching. It means the world to me that you spent this time here. If you enjoyed this story, or if it gave you a good chill, please hit that like button and subscribe for more tales from the dark. Stay safe out there, and maybe stick to the marked trails.